Robertson, Harvey Kirk, with the CTV National News.
Good evening. Prime Minister Trudeau completed the first stage of his peace crusade today in China. The big question now is whether he has anywhere else to go. Lloyd?
The second and final day of the Prime Minister's visit to Peking was much like the first. Chinese officials were cordial, correct, but standoffish. Communist Party Chairman Deng Xiaoping endorsed Trudeau's peace initiative in principle, but Deng backed away from the Prime Minister's most important proposal, a summit meeting of the 5 big nuclear powers. Brian Nelson reports.
Deng received the Prime Minister warmly and is said to have encouraged Mr. Trudeau's efforts to raise an alarm over the scope and direction of the arms race. But like Premier Zhao Ziyang the day before, Chairman Deng stopped well short of endorsing Trudeau's call for an immediate summit of the world's 5 nuclear powers. The Chinese leader wants increased pressure first put on Washington and Moscow before demanding arms reduction from the 3 other smaller nuclear nations like China. Still, Mr. Trudeau insists he is not totally disappointed.
I'm encouraged in the sense that they have no answer for my comment that I'm willing to put pressure on them. But I think the dynamics of the 5-power conference will be pursued. And just because they haven't jumped at the idea doesn't mean that it is not a good one and an essential one.
The results of both meetings are clearly disappointing for the Prime Minister. He had come here at the invitation of the Chinese, evidently believing that the invitation signified that the Chinese were willing to go along with his proposals. What he seems to be left with now is a solid endorsement from the Commonwealth, and he's hoping that that in itself is enough to convince Washington and Moscow to join his plan. As the Prime Minister boarded his plane for the return flight to New Delhi, it was clear he will not go to Moscow on this current tour. He feels the need to wait for some measure of endorsement from NATO foreign ministers who meet in Brussels on December the 8th before testing his peace proposals on either the Soviets or the Americans. This evening, Mr. Trudeau was back in India, briefing the Commonwealth Chairman, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, on his 2 days of talks with the Chinese. Brian Nelson, CTV News, with the Prime Minister in New Delhi.
While U.S.-Soviet talks have broken down on the question of medium-range missiles in Europe, other talks between them resumed today in Geneva. These are known as the START talks, and they are concerned with long-range nuclear weapons. U.S. and Soviet delegates met for over 3 hours. There had been speculation that the Soviets would also scuttle these negotiations, but both sides agreed to meet again on Thursday.
At the Peace Tower in Ottawa, an anti-cruise incident tonight ended with the arrest of 3 anti-cruise protesters from the peace camp on Parliament Hill. They'd locked themselves inside the Memorial Chapel with an extra strong bicycle lock to bar the door. The appeal court ruling that testing the cruise is constitutional may be appealed to the Supreme Court of Canada. Yesterday's court decision is being hailed by both the opposing sides, but for different reasons. Jim Munson reports.
Justice Minister Mark McGuigan welcomed the first ruling by the Federal Court of Appeal that the decision to test the cruise is constitutional. He claims it gives Cabinet wide protection against constitutional challenges.
It maintains the Charter intact, but it also maintains the right of the people through the Cabinet and through Parliament.
But since 3 of the 5 judges did state that political decisions could be reviewed by the courts, this fight is far from over. Even McGuigan has hinted the federal government would fund Operation Dismantle if the group chooses the Supreme Court route. That's what Operation Dismantle seems intent on doing. But before they get a hearing, they first must seek leave or convince the Supreme Court that their case should be heard. Operation Dismantle President Jim Stark says the group's lawyer is confident they'll get a favorable response.
So he feels that we still have a reasonable shot at reversing this decision in the Supreme Court. And I tend to agree, having read those opinions.
They destroyed the training centers of an extremist Lebanese Shiite group and of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. Almost 1,000 Iranian volunteers have been situated in the region to fight Israel. Both organizations revere Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini. The Shamir government says its attack today was strictly in response to the suicide bombing of its headquarters in Tyre, and not to avenge the car bombing of the American and French military headquarters in Beirut, where over 300 soldiers were killed. Still, it appears the airstrikes did serve Washington's interests, though the Israelis deny they coordinated the attack with the United States.
Israel is not exactly the country that is ready to do the dirty work for anyone, not even for our American friends.
Later in the day, the new American Mideast envoy, Donald Rumsfeld, held his first talks with Prime Minister Shamir. Today's airstrike was discussed. The timing appears to signify a new American-Israeli consensus to deal harshly with Syria's proxy troops in Lebanon. Martin Himmel, CTV News, Jerusalem.
In Washington today, the distinct lack of White House comment on the Israeli raid left the impression that the U.S. was pleased. In the past, U.S. officials have let it be known quickly when they were upset over Israeli actions.
There was fighting all over Lebanon today. The most dramatic was near the northern port city of Tripoli. That's where Palestinian rebels in fierce hand-to-hand combat captured the Badawi refugee camp, PLO chief Yasser Arafat's last stronghold in that country. Betsy Aaron reports.
The fighting was heavy and constant on this second day of the final siege of Badawi. But in the end, Yasser Arafat and his followers lost the camp. Rebels inside promising safety if fighters would stop fighting. It was as if Palestinian rebel leader Abu Musa and his Syrian and Libyan allies wanted to finish the job, take over the PLO and get rid of its chairman, Yasser Arafat. Arafat's fighters were not giving up easily. Several of them inside this apartment house on the outskirts of Badawi fired back for close to an hour while this went on. Building demolition Palestinian style. As yesterday, accuracy was at a premium. Launching rockets, not a job for amateurs. There is a constant in guerrilla fighting. The innocent pay the highest price. A Lebanese family caught in this so-called war of the others on Lebanese soil. Wounded, 2 children and their father. Somehow it is easier for the fighter to understand. Yasser Arafat has lost Badawi and is now negotiating for the safety of his people and perhaps for his life. In the past, he has been accused of compromising and conciliating beyond reason. Today, he has never had a greater reason. Betsy Aaron, ABC News in Tripoli.
In Lebanon's capital, Beirut, what passes for a ceasefire broke down badly again today. Renewed warfare between the Lebanese army and Syrian-backed militias took at least 8 civilian lives. Shells and rockets hit Christian East Beirut, the Muslim suburbs in the south, and the international airport.
Alberta's Solicitor General resigned today, a week after police discovered him sitting in a car with a prostitute. At first, Graham Harrell, aged 51, said he was just conducting research. But today, he was offering apologies to the public and his family, along with his resignation. Mark Sickstrom reports.
Police discovered the Solicitor General and the prostitute sitting in his government-supplied Chrysler in this parking lot of an East End hotel. Neither Harrell nor the prostitute were charged, but a few days later, word of their early morning encounter reached the media.
When asked about it, Harrell said he was doing some personal research into the problem of prostitution. He says he's talked with prostitutes at least once before, because you don't get hard information by going through several people. Asked what he had learned, the Solicitor General concluded that prostitution doesn't appear to be a problem right at the moment. A day after those comments were made public, Premier Lougheed announced he had accepted Harrell's resignation.
The circumstances, it seemed to me, would reduce his credibility significantly to continue as Solicitor General. That was his view, and I concurred in it.
Harrell is now in seclusion at his home in Stettler, Alberta. Though he wouldn't appear on camera, he admitted that he had done the wrong thing and apologized to the public and to his family for his actions. Married with 1 son, Harrell says he hasn't decided whether to keep his seat in the legislature or retire from public life altogether. Mark Sickstrom, CTV News, Edmonton.
The Alberta Attorney General Neil Crawford has called for a review of security after a man pulled a gun in an Edmonton divorce court and shot his estranged wife to death. The third-floor courtroom was almost deserted, and the judge had not yet entered. Witnesses said the man pulled a handgun and fired several times. An elderly woman died instantly from head wounds. Police said the 69-year-old man handed the gun to an orderly and quietly surrendered.
It's all over but the verdict in the trial of Thompson Newspapers and Southam Incorporated. The judge in the Ontario Supreme Court monopoly trial said today he'll likely announce a date for his judgment tomorrow. He's already acquitted the firms of 5 of the 8 original charges. They all stemmed from the simultaneous closing on August 27, 1980, of Thompson's Ottawa Journal and Southam's Winnipeg Tribune. Margaret Trudeau has filed a petition for divorce from her estranged husband, the Prime Minister. The petition was filed in Toronto court today by her lawyer. It cites long-term separation as the grounds. Prime Minister Trudeau has not yet been served with the petition papers. Mrs. Trudeau's lawyer says the entire proceedings could take as long as a year. The two were married in 1971, but they have been living apart under a legal separation since May 1977. Prime Minister Trudeau has custody of their 3 sons, but the children normally spend half their time with their mother. Her lawyer said today she has no plans to remarry.
A deal which will transfer ownership of the financially strapped First Choice pay TV network was approved by the CRTC today. The deal will give control of First Choice to the Bronfman-controlled Hees International Corporation, initially, and then to the Quebec film and photographic firm Astro Bellevue Pathé. The proposal had been criticized by independent production houses, which argued that it would give Astral a stronghold in the pay TV production market. But the CRTC said today it will carefully monitor the arrangement to ensure that it doesn't happen again. British Columbia has been suffering from some heavy rainfall. More than 8 centimeters has fallen in the past 2 days. Yesterday, landslides forced the highway between Vancouver and Squamish to close and destroyed 3 railway bridges. And today, a section of the Trans-Canada Highway at Boston Bar had to shut down after a rock slide. Highway crews had the road open after a few hours, and most traffic in the province is returning to normal. A severe earthquake hit the island of Hawaii today. No one was badly hurt, although there was some heavy damage. Terry Drinkwater has more.
When the lava flows from Hawaii's volcanoes, at least residents can see the disaster coming. But quakes are different, sudden and sharp. Today's was at least 6.7 on the Richter scale.
And we went backwards and I went frontwards and I fell. And this thing was going just like a wave.
It started, and then from then on, it was just a matter of holding on and trying to avoid everything that was crashing down around me.
In the major town on the island, Hilo, there was widespread damage, utilities out. And the worst has yet to be assessed, structural damage, which is harder to see. But there and elsewhere on this largest of the Hawaiian islands, injuries were relatively minor, mostly cuts from broken glass. The quake was felt in Honolulu on Oahu, 200 miles away. Aftershocks continued throughout the day. Several homes surrounding a golf course were knocked off their foundations. Walls collapsed. For a time, the highway around the island was closed. But worse was what happened to Crater Rim Drive, the road past the Kilauea volcano. The quake shook so hard, it fell into one of the craters. However, geologists there conclude tonight that the quake and all of the volcanic activity over the past year are unrelated. By shaking the earth, ancient Hawaiian religion holds that the gods are punishing man for his transgressions. Many islanders are used to quakes, but today's jolt was too much for thousands of vacationers there who are attracted, among other things, by the more gentle movements of the hula. The airlines reported all flights off the island suddenly full. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Life today can get hectic. Sometimes we all go through a lot of stress. Stress that can rob your body of B complex and C vitamins it can't store. That's why Stress Guard vitamins were developed. Stress Guard has high levels of B complex and C vitamins, plus the added benefit of a multiple vitamin. So if you work hard or play hard, take Stress Guard vitamins. They help put back what today may take out.
It's change time. Big boys need double cloth diapers.
But Grandma, Johnny wears Pampers.
A new size Pampers for bigger babies. New Toddler Plus. Yes, he's really grown.
So has Pampers. They're bigger and even fasten up again.
Refastenable tapes. What a great idea for checking wetness. And toilet training.
Pampers' new size Toddler Plus are so absorbent, they stay twice as dry as even double cloth diapers.
Johnny's as comfy as Teddy.
New size Toddler Plus with refastenable tapes, twice as dry as even double cloth diapers.
Oh, wet cloth. Boy, do I need a change. Hey, Pampers will all be fitted Pampers with frilly little gathers. Let's try them out. There go the plastic pants and so long cloth. Gee, this is nice. So soft and gentle. Bet you these will help me stay dry outside without those pinchy plastic pants. And Pampers are drier inside, too. You know, Joey says his Pampers stay twice as dry as cloth. Look at me, dry from top to bottom in my new fitted Pampers.
New Pampers with Stay Dry Gathers helps babies stay dry from top to bottom.
I like them.
Defense Minister Jean-Jacques Blais met with his American counterpart, Caspar Weinberger,